Hey folks, back again with another vlog. This is Steven Universe episodes something or other, but it's Monster Reunion and Alone at Sea, which if you go to the Mark Spoils blog at all, I posted there about the fact that I had a pretty rough week so far. A lot of ups and downs. And then I was like, oh, hey, let's watch some Steven Universe on Monday night, I think it was. And yeah, I watched these episodes. So I really couldn't handle making this vlog for a couple of days. They hit me pretty hard, especially the second one. But let's start with Monster Reunion. Excellent episode. It was great to see Centipedal back. The callback to, I think it was called Monster Buddies. The episode that I dubbed the Pokemon episode, which kind of made sense of the fact that Centipedal has a Pokeball for an eye. But this episode had a lot of really good stuff. I liked that the gem language looked like scribbles. It's been my experience that a lot of alphabets, especially in cursive, look like scribbles if you're not familiar with them. Languages that use pictographs tend to be a little less scribbly looking, even if you don't know them, because each symbol is kind of discrete and you can tell where it begins and ends, but with alphabets it's just kind of so I don't know, I liked that little detail. I loved the animation in the sequence where Centipedal tells her story. That was very neat. The abrupt appearance of things as Centipedal drew them, Steven's narration, it was all very well done. The only question I had was the bright light from the sky that Steven describes as a song. Was that him interpreting? Or did Centipedal do something to indicate that it was a song? And if so, how does she know what a song is? I don't know. That kind of confused me a little. Unless she was one of the crystal gems, but then her story doesn't really make sense unless she was a homeworld gem. Because what it looks like happened was that when it was clear the Earth was basically lost to them, the homeworld gems, the diamonds, I guess, did something that corrupted most of the gems on the planet, including both homeworld gems that were left behind in the retreat and presumably crystal gems on Rose's side. Because I have to assume that she, Pearl, Garnet, and I actually can't remember if Amethyst was alive during the war or came out after, but I have to assume that the three of them, or four of them, were not the entire Crystal Gem army. In which case, especially because Jasper talks about fighting in the war but never met Rose. So there have to have been others for her to fight. I guess maybe Rose shielded the gems closest to her with her, shield powers, but wasn't able to protect everyone. Which I can only imagine the Survivors Guild that would result in, for everyone involved. Yeah, but this was very much like a heart punch episode. Centipedal getting to reunite with her crew was very sweet. The fact that they're letting them stay. But yeah, very sad as Steven discovers that he can't help everyone, he can't heal everyone. But that isn't really true because he did help her. He got her back to her crew, like Garnet pointed out. So I guess it was more that you maybe can't save everyone, but you can try and you can help and you can maybe do some good. I don't know. And then there's Alone at Sea, which, again, like, I avoid fandoms in general, but in particular for stuff I'm watching. I have had basically no engagement with the Steven Universe fandom. I block Steven Universe related posts from my Tumblr dashboard, that kind of thing. And so I have no idea. But I strongly suspect this episode was probably pretty divisive in the fandom. Because I have to imagine that the Steven Universe, like, just based on the people I know who are in it, that the Steven Universe fandom is fairly conscious of, like, social justice related issues, and so would know about, like, abusive relationships and that kind of thing. And being conscious of social justice issues and therefore more left inclined, there's kind of a saying among people who've been on the left for a while that, like, the natural formation of the left is a circular firing squad. We have a tendency to infight a lot. And I have a feeling this one set off one of those circular firing squads. And the reason I say that is because there's two opposed, distinct, and yet equally well-supported ways to read this episode. Because, so, Lapis has severe self-esteem problems, clearly. Like, she talks about not deserving friends, not deserving to be taken out. She's clearly struggling with something very like depression, if gems can be depressed. They seem to be emotionally pretty similar to us, so yeah. She's clearly been through a traumatic experience, and yet she misses it, and that's actually not uncommon. Because if you're in a long-term, like, continuous trauma, you adapt to survive. And when it's taken away, everything's unfamiliar, and unfamiliar is scary. It doesn't matter if you were terrified every second while you were being abused or whatever it was. It doesn't matter if, like, you were in emotional or physical pain. It's still possible to miss it. It's still possible for it to feel safer than the unknown that is living without it. And there's a tendency to recreate elements of it. Which may be one reason that, coupled with the fact that abusers are good at finding people that they can get away with abusing, the two factors, that's probably the bigger factor, but it probably doesn't help. The tendency to recreate the traumatic environment by the victim. For example, I grew up in poverty and squalor and filth. And it's a struggle to recognize that I don't have to do that anymore. Like, I make a pretty solid salary. I can afford rent, and I have the free time to keep the place clean, and yet it's a real struggle to do it. and I live in basically a shithole. And I could live somewhere better. I could, if I moved to a different neighborhood, I could live in a much nicer place. And for whatever reason, it's just hard to work up the energy to move. And I think it has a lot to do with how I grew up. That I grew up in shitty places. I grew up in horrible filth, and so keeping something at the level of merely kind of messy is a huge step up for me, and it's anything past that, and we're getting into the unknown. I don't know. If I can understand Lapis missing Jasper is the point I'm making, because Jasper was a known quantity. And now she's in this scary new environment and she wants to retreat to what she knew. And then Jasper comes and, Lapis says that, she was torturing Jasper. She was enjoying torturing Jasper. And Jasper says that Lapis is the real monster. But is that the truth, or is that Lapis blaming herself for an abusive relationship she was trapped in? Is it Jasper being, the abuser who's good at blaming the victim, who's good at turning people against the victim? The abuser who's good at looking like the victim, because that's very common. Abusers are very good at looking like victims. So that's one way of reading the whole episode. Another way of reading the whole episode is, well, abusers are really good at looking like victims, and Lapis sure looks like one. And it's true. We do know she did trap Jasper in that fusion. She was holding an unwilling Jasper in a fusion. Maybe it's Jasper who's the abuse victim. Jasper who's reaching, trying to return to an abusive situation because it's become familiar and safe and she's scared of being on her own. And I can only imagine the massive wars in the fandom. It probably doesn't help that, Lapis, out of all the gems, is the one that's closest to, conventional attractiveness, the way someone that we're supposed to read as attractive is generally drawn in cartoons. Lapis is, out of every gem, the one who's closest to that. And so I can see that biasing people in her favor. I can see it also people accusing others of being biased in her favor because of it. I don't know. I can just see this being just a massive fandom war. And the thing is, it could be neither of those things. It could have been a mutually abusive relationship. It could have been a relationship that was unhealthy, without one person being the abuser and the other being the victim, because some relationships are like that too. Sometimes two people are just really, really bad for each other, like Garnet said when they first fused, They could just be really, really bad for each other, and being together makes them both terrible people, makes them both aggressive and sadistic and hurting each other, and for that reason, they have to stay apart. There's not a clear abuser and a clear victim, but just two people that you put them together and they treat each other horribly, and oh my god, I'm describing Lars and Sadie. But yeah, just a really unhealthy relationship. Which, now that I'm thinking about it, that's what Garnet said, and it's what Lapis says in this episode, that it just wasn't healthy. That it's bad for both of them, that it brought out bad sides in both of them. It clearly brought out a lot of rage, because it's pretty obvious that rage is the common element between them. That when they attacked Watermelon Island as one, it was rage that made that possible. They share a lot of rage. So that's how kind of they connected and started coordinating, is because they both felt that rage. That's about all I got. It's a rough episode that doesn't give clear answers, and yet it manages to have some really great humor in it. One of the best episodes of the series, in my opinion. And I really look forward to watching more. So I will see y'all next time. Bye.